Ok, bonjour et bienvenue à cette dernière session de la conférence. And that's all I'm going to say in French. So we're going to switch to English for the last session. I'm very excited to introduce 3 papers in English, all over Zoom. And our first speaker is Chieh Huang from the University of California, Irvine, who is a percussionist, vibraphonist, and composer. I'm going to edit this a little bit. She's currently advancing her academic career as a PhD candidate in integrated composition, improvisation, and technology at the University of California, Irvine. And you have a longer bio in your program. And her talk today is called Weaving Worlds, the Interlacing of Atayal Language and Heritage into Contemporary Composition. Please welcome Ms. Huang.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm going to share my screen, make sure that I click the right button, stereo, optimize for video clip, and share. All right. I hope you all enjoy this wonderful conference. Thank you to University Lumière Lyon 2, Antoinette, and Professor Chabot-Ganet for organizing it. I apologize for speaking English during this session. Hopefully in 10 years, I'll be totally speaking French like a pro. So the title of my presentation is Weaving Worlds, the Interlacing of Atayal Language and Heritage into Contemporary Composition. So far, we listened to various voice analysis regarding timbre, pitch, voice placement, AI, and such, some of the tools to analyze the voice, the speech, the spoken text. So for my topic, I'm going to approach it from a composer's perspective. I will begin my presentation by introducing the Atayal people, and then following this, I will delve into the aim of this project and pose the main research question that guide my exploration. Subsequently, I will unpack 4 theoretical concepts underpinning my work and shed light on the composition of other artists who have inspired me. And to conclude, I will share insights into my unique workflow and articulate my approach to text, speech, indigenous elements, and language into my composition. So this is the sound of the Atayal language.
Mututa tayuh kayan na buwan wagi sa mawas cikai renwasan lengut kayan ka belak salai kentayuh na.
So Atayal is the 3rd largest indigenous group in Taiwan. And Taiwan was colonized by Japan in 1895. During that time, indigenous dialects and culture were heavily restricted. Fast forward to the past decade, and we see the government promoting the use of indigenous dialects. However, younger generations are no longer proficient in the language. Language encompasses cultural traditions and values, and as a younger generation is not aware of them, it is urgent to refocus on cultural and linguistics values. Growing up in an Atayal family, I believe that the indigenous Atayal culture should not be merely preserved or labeled as dying, confined to museum exhibitions. Instead, it should be actively applied, allowed to evolve, and its core principles adapted to various situations. So this project, this dissertation that I was writing, aims to create a dialogue between Atayal culture and the Western contemporary music field. The phonetics, grammar, and metaphors that are prominent in Atayal language are used as a basis for the compositional methodology, informing purely instrumental compositions, as well as other works that feature spoken text. In my compositions, I integrate improvisation and utilize technology, including motion sensors, spatialized sounds, MIDI instrument, interactive video, that they all help me to convey aspects of the Atayal language in ways that acoustic instruments cannot. So as we proceed, let's consider the central research question guiding this project. First, how can we transfer indigenous culture and language, spoken text, spoken language, into the Western contemporary music field? Second, how do these approaches contribute to broader societal understandings of cultural interconnectedness and transformation? So these are the four concepts that I use in my work: choralization, relation, vibrational theory, and indigeneity. So for the first concept, choralization, there's no singularity, but multiplicity. According to Baron and Carroll's Choralizations of Cultural Creativity, the concept of choralization was first formed through the study of languages in colonial situations, where people who spoke different languages developed a linguistic medium to communicate. So choralization serves two purposes in my projects. First is to open a more comprehensive ethnocultural realm, and second is to inform the cultural notion of being. Overall, choralization provides conceptual framework for understanding and contextualizing the ways in which Atayal culture and Western contemporary music intersect and interact in this research project, and ultimately contributing to the creation of a rich and dynamic dialogue between these cultural and artistic values. Second is relation. So I'm going to use this French philosopher Edouard Glissant, his concept of relation in his book, Poetics of Relation. He states relation is not made out of things that are formed, but of shared knowledge. He also envisions a world in which different cultures and peoples interact and connect without losing their distinctiveness. So in my work, I strive to explore and highlight the dialogue that takes place between indigenous and Western contemporary music. I believe that this relationship sheds light on an important aspect of both tradition, and I am committed to furthering our understanding of their interconnectedness. Our concept is vibrational theory. Nina Son-Ansheim, she's a UCLA musicologist, professor. She explained that all sounds are interconnected, from air molecules to sound technologies, performance spaces, and human bodies. Music contains vibrational sensations, not just audibility. This notion is fundamental. She emphasized that our familiarity with sound and the unique characteristic of human anatomy influence our perception and localization of sounds. So in my compositional process, vibrational experiences assist in understanding the relationships between materials and bodies and non-human bodies, aiding with composition using, in my case, the technology that I use is motion sensor. Finally, is indigeneity. It's a critical part of my research, especially regarding responsible compositional practice. And Dylan, in his book, Hungry Listening, he talks about responsible compositional practice refer to creating music in a way that respects and acknowledges the cultural, historical, and social context of the materials and themes being used. And this includes avoiding cultural appropriation, being aware of power dynamics, and ensuring any representation of a culture or community is accurate, respectful, and done with permission. So these are the four composers that I have studied, and also using their music as my inspiration. Ravi Shankar, he is a Dene composer, Native American composer. He used symbols, vocables in his work. Monsieur Kago, a treatment of text and Hu Defu, he is indigenous Taiwanese composer using the intervals that frequently appeared in indigenous Taiwanese traditional music. And Peter Eblingers used pitches and rhythms in his work. Now I'm just going to show the first page of Irvine Shakan's work. This piece called Tiago Deza. So he used symbols to connecting the vocables. We'll just hear the first 1 minute. So in his work, he combined the vocables, the shortest vowels, the shorter consonants, and the indigenous language, and in using that to express the passage, the notes that he's trying to depict. And then this movement is called like a chased animal. If I have more time, I'll talk about this piece more, but I'm going to just give a brief introduction of my workflow. So my voice analysis workflow involves close reading, and first I use pitch tracking for the spoken materials. Tools I utilize include Praat, RX10, Spear, Antares Auto-Tune Pro, Melodyne, and Synchro Odds Revoice Pro. I primarily use Praat to study spectrograms, and RX10 is a powerful plugin used for removing unwanted noise from speech. And with Spear, I can manipulate partials and convert them to SDIF for analysis in Max MSP or Open Music. SDIF is a sound description interchange format. And the first step involves using Praat, a program that allows for the visualization of spectrograms, formants, intensities, and pitches. And you can see the frequencies here. And next, I use Spear to synthesize and analyze different partials. In Spear, I have the ability to manipulate any partials as required, including stretching, editing, and dragging any regions. Additionally, it allows me to filter sounds based on certain frequency I selected. Third step, I remove the partials with lower intensity, retaining only those with stronger lines. And this simplifies the next step, which involves generating notes using the Bach roll objects in Max MSP. So here are the results. I used the Bach and cache object to generate all the partials and zoomed in to view all the notes. So to provide a brief overview of my approach towards processing speech, text, and sounds, I collected the data, including pitches, rhythms, manipulate partials, frequencies, and next step, I adjust the EQ, including reverbs, filter, manipulating partials, spatialize, or perform samplings. And this is my standard approach to processing sound files. And as for text language, I typically use root of the words for cross-referencing and analyze symbolic and metaphorical meanings to contextualizing my work. I use 4 methods to incorporate indigenous language. and indigenous elements into my work. The first is abstraction, where I utilize indigenous symbols. And the second is through metaphors, as Atayal is a metaphorical language. I incorporate the metaphorical aspect into my compositions. The third is through rhythmic repetition, which I frequently use. And lastly, I incorporate multidimensionality, where I not only deal with the sounds, but also ponder about the Atayal values and philosophies. I consider how I use technology and my relationship with the technology. So there's another layer of multidimensionality. After going over my methodology, it is crucial to note that the nature of speech, spoken text, requires an understanding of musical significance that involves dialogue among composers, listeners, performers, and musicologists. As a composer, involves understanding and utilizing the information is key. Furthermore, it is important to consider what this information and data means to composers. Perhaps the composers are negotiating between noise and music, incorporating the subject of sounds into compositional decision, creating a mix of inevitability and chance. Speech, text, and music sometimes enter a liminal state. Therefore, it is worth investigating in depth how you conceptually compose speech and music. So this is just my process, how I use the text, and I use the fundamental of the pitch, and I use the verb as the action word to compose. Like I said, Atayal language is a metaphorical language. For example, thin knife, when I use it in a text, it's not you literally mean knife, it's actually mean metaphorical, means small conflict. And when I say weaver, it actually means a virtuous woman. So I'm going to share, I know I don't have much time now, but I'm going to share my own composition, Chasing Threats. I use motion sensor to trigger the dialects between reality, how I play the instruments, and the sounds of an ancestor, the language. Let's play just 1 minute of it. And the pitch was generating from the text, the spoken text, and certain motion, the up and down motion that generates the language.
Kekotoh dayan hayah maluhna dayan. Magivai shimusan. Magivai shimusan. Garuda gaga. Kemaluh. Kemaluh.
Allah asu, malahu, Allah asu,
Kembali ke Praat. Kembali
Our identities exist in relation to everything around us, and this interplay of relations leads to new expressions in music. In conclusion, I want to use, she's also an indigenous scholar, Joanne Archibald. She said that the importance of listening with 3 ears, 2 on the sides of our head, and the one that is in our heart. Atayal Lumahud, that's the type of language I use, has taught me that our humanity is defined by the paths we edge with noise, words, and music. Words can shape words. And this is the references I use, Adrical Song Poetic Relation, and Being Indigenous, and also Handbook of Critical Indigenous Studies, Tim Ingle about tactility of making, and Hungry Listening by Dylan Robinson. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I hope you find this presentation useful, and you can always email me at chieh1@uci.edu. If you have any questions, you can email me. So, all right, thank you so much.
All right, thank you. We have some time for questions.
Well, I'm going to ask one. It's Antoine, by the way, because you probably can't see me. So you mentioned that the younger generation doesn't speak the language all that much anymore. How much of it do you speak, by the way, just out of curiosity?
I don't speak the language in everyday life, just because growing up, be honest, my school never encouraged us to speak indigenous language. We have to speak Mandarin. So I am still trying to relearning the language. Like my parents would speak the language, but they will not speak the language to me. Also the policy and all that. Yeah.
So it's not just working with the language, it's really like analyzing it and trying to understand it, come to grips with a language that you want to speak but cannot truly, completely speak the way you'd like to. And for you, it's like reclaiming the language, right?
Right.
Right. And hearing you speak, I was wondering to what extent us analysts analyzing the voice of artists, how much that is us reclaiming the ability to sing in a musically compelling way, because most of us, we're not that great singers as far as I can tell. So I was wondering about that, thanks to your presentation.
Could you repeat the question?
It's more of a comment on what
Okay.
your presentation inspired me. This idea of trying to understand something that you cannot do by analyzing it instead of doing it.
Right. I think that's what I'm trying to do right now. I try to incorporate indigenous language into my music. And of course, not everyone can speak the language. But how can people, even they don't understand the language, can also appreciate the language. This is something that I'm trying to do. And of course, there are not a lot of Atayal people around me and where I live in California. So my method is to start this project and starting from using the language, utilizing the language, and hopefully I can find all the musicians and scholars who are Atayal and we can speak the language and can have communities, can have concerts or events that we can start together. So this is my ultimate goal, and I'm still doing it right now. So I hope that I kind of answer the question.
You did. Yep. Yeah. You absolutely need the mic in this instance.
Sorry if this is obvious and I missed it, but I was wondering if you could describe some of the sounds, the phonetic characteristics of the language and how they might have inspired you, or how you might have approached composing and writing based off of the traits and the sounds of the pronunciation, for instance. What does this language sound like in many ways?
Yes, that's a very great question. I use the rhythms a lot in my composition, but also the way Atayal language of pronouncing is very different than English or French. I would say the language is very much in the front and not so much as the vowel sound is not as prominent as English or French. So when I compose, I keep that in mind and I use pitches and rhythms to capture the qualities, but also I use MIDI keyboard or MIDI instruments to map some of the sounds that I cannot pronounce it using organic instruments.
Thank you very much. Your creative use of software is really cool. So thanks for sharing that.
Okay, last call for questions. All right, well, let's thank Ms. Huang one more time.
Thank you so much.